Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Didikanku with your host, David. Today, we're joined with a very special guest. He's a internationally accredited coach. He's a very successful businessman and author. His name is Mr. Jimmy Susanto. Welcome, Coach Jimmy.
Yes, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for your time today to come join our show. For some of our listeners who would like to know a little bit more about you, can you give us a little bit about your background, how you got into coaching, and maybe some of the books you've authored?
Right, it's gonna be a long one. So basically, I'm started in NLP. So I started fixing myself, to be honest. So I was depressed when I was go back to 2001 because I witnessed the WTC because I was in the US studying and then I'm going back for summer break. And my sister was still there during the time, and I cannot return because the embassy is closed. So basically, I started with NLP. So I took a lot of NLP trainings at that time. In back 2009, I took NLP trainings. At that time, there is not really a much people known about NLP. So I started with NLP and then started to do certification, which is international certification, a practitioner, and then 2011 I took another master practitioner, and then 2012 is the big one. 2012 is when I go to the US for almost a month to get all the certification up to the trainer certifications. And after that, all the craze is there. Afterwards, I do coaching. I took ICF coaching. The first coaching certification international is ICF based coach for a 6 days, 5 nights trainings back 2012. So after that, all started with that. So before I started to into a like a education shopping or certification shopping, I call it shopping because we tend to just join class and take and I don't know what to do afterwards, right? So I was in the sales and marketing for a property developer. So actually, my father owned the company, but as a Chinese kids, you don't get the privilege of become a certain position. So you started from below. So I started as a freelance marketer, freelance marketing as a property, but we do corporate sales. We don't do like hit and run. So basically, I become a sales, and then afterward, I need to improve myself, right? So starting to learn and few motivational stuff, reading books. Then back in 2009, jump into NLP course. Yeah, afterwards, fast forward until now, since 2012, become an NLP trainer. So starting doing NLP stuff and then coaching stuff, and then write a book with Brian Tracy and getting award as a bestseller author. And then 2013, based on that book, I was being acknowledged as a World Coaching Congress in India as one of the 100 uh, Global Coaching Leaders Award.
Wow.
So
I think if we keep going, we could spend the whole session just talking about your resume and your achievements as a businessman, as a salesperson, as an author, as a coach. But something you mentioned earlier about how you started into NLP training, and you said that it kind of happened due to a certain circumstance at that time that caused you to feel a bit depressed.
yes.
So how did NLP help you during that time?
So during that time, NLP doesn't exist. It's 2001.
Right.
So NLP Vibrate is in 2009 when I was studying it. So during that 8 years, I went to a lot of psychology, went to psychotherapy, Psychology only give you advice, listen to you, listen all your sob stories and stuff. While psychotherapy gonna provide you with medicines, a chill pill, what they call it, right?
Yep.
And before that, I'm a Chinese, right? My parents is a Chinese person, so they think they took me into a spiritual, what they call it in English. Yeah. So they have channeling, right? Channeling with the god and goddesses. So they gave me to take showers with flowers, burn incense, and stuff, right? So
Okay.
so that helped a little bit, but the stress and then the anxiety when it comes to work will be getting me down, stress, doesn't want to go out, doesn't want to do stuff. So like instability in work, in life.
Mm,
So every person, as I acknowledge right now, every person have their own stress level and resistant level of the stress.
right.
So different person will be different levels of the stress and then the anxiety level and up to depression level.
Right.
So yeah.
I think
Now,
I think
yeah.
what you mentioned is what a lot of people, perhaps now during the pandemic, are going
Mhm.
through. I think a lot of people have a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety,
Mhm.
perhaps even depression.
Yep.
So, what would you say is the best way to deal with this? Is it through NLP training? And as a coach, how would you, I guess, help a coachee who is going through this kind of situation?
Okay. That's a good bridging. So the thing is, the NLP certification is like a full complete of programs with how you modify your brains, how you modify your reactions, how you identify the patterns. So when you get stressed, when you get anxiety, there's a pattern towards that and why it's repeated and how you can stop the pattern and stop the repetitions or at least reduce or increase the resistancy of the stress so we can easily get stressed, but we can manage the stress and we can overcome the stress. The
Mm,
problem with people in pandemic, first thing, they constantly receiving all the news, receiving all the reaction, always uh, being our media is feeding us all the death stories, the
mm,
numbers going up, but never discuss the happy part, which is what the percentage of mortality rate versus the recovery rate is different. Recovery
right,
rate, if you can see, compared to the mortality rate, is less than 3%. Why don't you
right,
discuss the 97% that recovery rate and the success of recovering? They never expose that. If you
right.
expose what happened to the 97% and how they can recover, that's the first thing, right? And then
Mm,
the other pandemic stuff is they cannot share. They cannot. If someone having a problem, I'm not saying stress, but problem. At least if they have someone and can listen to the problems, it helps, right? So the problem
definitely.
is the second one, there's no other people that helping up, right? And the
Yeah, I
third
think
thing
you
is
make a really good point there that when we turn on the news, there's just so much negativity,
mm,
and we lose track of all the good things that are actually happening and things to be grateful for. Um, so, what would you say for someone who's isolated and they don't really have someone to talk to? Is there anything they can do um, themselves?
right.
Maybe turn off the
So
TV, stop listening to social media, something like that.
right, that's simple stuff. But for me, from NLP side, I
Mm,
will give simple advice. First of all, will be think all the good times you have
mm,
and will have,
right.
right? For example, if someone or David, for example, David have a wife or a kids, for example, remember the good times when when you shift their minds from the sob stories or the sad stories or the pass away friends and relatives. when you shift that, hey, check out what do you have right now, and what you will do with them when you recover. What will you do to them? What you will say to them if you recover from this, or for the people who is doing their self isolation, or the one in the hospital. If you start thinking the happy stuff, right, as simple as that, you just shift the concept, shift the minds. Therefore, you can start recovering. This has happened because my parents just survived the COVID, and they're taking the isolation at home, right? The first 3 days quite critical because they are stressed out. I'm always at home. How can I be infected with this virus when I'm barely coming out? I barely go out. I barely meet people. I always stay at home for the 1.5 years. How can I infect it, right? So my father and my mom both are infected, right? So they're quite stressed out because they cannot sleep. When they cannot sleep, their body and their recovery and their immune system is dropped. So they are keep falling for the first 3 days, very weak and everything, right? So that's the problem with this virus. They will attack you when you're down, when you lack of sleep, your immune system down. When you are sad, when you cry, your immune system down.
Right.
So simply shift it up to the
Right.
happy
And
stuff.
I think that's a very important point you bring up, and a very powerful message is changing your mindset, because there is that saying, we are what we think, right?
Yep.
But for a lot of people, that's very difficult to do. So what advice would you give to those people who are trying to get into that mindset?
Okay. Now, this is quite interesting statement from you that is quite hard. The thing is, if your closest friends or your closest family saying in that, there will not much impact, right? Because what? Normally you are siblings or spouse, but if someone talk from authority figure, for example, we as a coach, perhaps they will listen to the coach, right? For example, my parents, they will not listen to me
My
because
parents,
I'm the
my
son,
parents,
right? But
yeah,
the doctor, when the doctor say it, they will listen.
right,
But it's the same information that we said.
right. It's just
So
from
it
someone
depends.
else.
Right. Unfortunately, my wife is a medical doctor,
Okay.
so my parents listens more to my wife instead of their own son. First thing is the person who's saying it is more important. If your person doesn't want to listen to you, find someone who have more, what do you call it, more authority in their own perspective, right?
So someone who's maybe like a role model, or someone who they
It
look
can be.
up to and would
Yes.
listen to.
Yes. 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 Exactly.
Very interesting. So, I'm sure you're a role model for quite a lot of people. I mean, you do these NLP trainings, you help certify um, a lot of other trainees and coaches. So, in your experience,
Mm.
um, what has been some main questions that people who see you as that authority or that role model figure ask you?
Well, sometimes I play both sides of the role. Sometimes I play a joker, so I like to tease around, so to maintain the level of connections.
Right.
Because if I don't like to being put so high, so you cannot connect. Because when someone is too high, they will not share their what do you call it, the deep connections.
Mm.
As a coach, you have to build that kind of rapport, that kind of connection. And
Right.
for me to do that, I tend to tease them, not tease with the electric, but for the jokes. So I don't really put it myself as as high as like a role model, or maintain the charm and everything, or maintain the charisma. I tend to be easy to approach, right? For example, like someone from your assistant is Dia, just add me and then send me a message and ask me for podcast. So I maintain the easiness, so I don't put a barrier for that. So I just remove the barrier, make a connection, build a rapport, make it easy and fun for us to connect faster. So I combine with the coach. Coach, sometimes you have to maintain the rapport, you have to maintain the connections. So they will tell, and then they will share, and then they will tell uh, their secrets, their problems, and then it will be easier for us to help. So I don't really have that. I don't really uh, that kind of issues or content to be shared. Perhaps you can
Right.
elaborate on questions.
Right. I think that's something that's very important, not just as a coach, but even if you're a manager, a leader, being able to see people at the same level and not look down on people is a very important quality. Um, but what are some things that some of your coaches come to you for during this time? Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So lately, I lost interest in managing or coaching individual clients. So I think in the 2 years, I only have one client. So my excitement is to create new people like me,
Mm,
new people that know NLP and know coaching. So they become a coach, they become an NLP practitioner, they become NLP. I find that more pleasing for me, because if I do it myself, I only can do one thing. If I create another David or another Jimmy,
right.
so one Jimmy or one David can help 10 people instead of me doing 10 people. One coach, maximum 20 clients. So if I create more people like me, more people know and able to do coaching with my steps and my NLP and my knowledge, I can help more people. So I tend to
Wow.
think of that as a leverage. So I like to create more of
Wow.
coach.
So you're creating a larger impact for people around you by coaching people and training people to also be able to help others through coaching, through NLP. I think that's a very admirable thing that you do. Um, what would you say, though, are some challenges that you've encountered? Do you think that everyone can be a good NLP practitioner or coach? Have you ever
Uh,
met someone who maybe doesn't have that ability or that skill? And what do you do in that situation?
oh, that's quite challenging question. Most of the uh, coach or NLP is a skill base.
Right.
Uh, it's not really talent based. And for NLP people, I just say Pareto rules, 20-80 rules, right? Out of
Mhm.
80% that I train NLP, only around 20 people who will be doing NLP for professionally. Most of them will do for personally, for individual, for their well-being.
Mm,
Now, in
that's
the
an
coaching
interesting
side,
statistic.
there's a statistic that I'm doing since 2012, right?
Yeah.
Almost a decade of doing it. And for coaching, almost the same rules. The Pareto only 80-20, so around only 20%, not 20%, 20% will be converted into a professional coach.
Mm,
I don't know in other school, maybe in other school will be different statistic, but in my my track record only 20% Pareto or maximum 30% I will be doing it professionally. And basically it's not just talent, right? But the willingness to learn, because learning coaching, right? They have like what we call training hours. So the amount of hours that you've been trained as a coach. The second part is the coaching hours, the numbers that you are doing coaching to a client. Either you pay it, you're free, or you barter it, right? So that two level will be define your own skill or not skill. So for myself will be talent or not talented, based on that two things, training hours and the coaching hours. If you're talented, for example, Coach David, for example, if you're really talented, but your training hours is different with the one who do 150 hours training, right? You're talented, but you don't equip with the knowledge yet, right? Okay, that's one part. And the second part is the coaching hours. For example, you are talented, you are only 16 hours. For me, I did 150 hours training hours, right? My certification for coaching is 12 certification coach, for example, right? So different training hours, you have different knowledge, right? You have different tools or equipments, right? And the second part is the coaching hours. For example, David only do 100 coaching hours, while other people have 1,000 coaching hours. So the degree of practice and doing it is different, right?
So it really comes from the individual themselves. How much do they want it? How determined are they? How willing are they to spend the time to learn, to gain new knowledge?
Dedication.
Is that right?
Yeah. So more into that.
So what about those people who really say, you know, I really do want to learn this. I do want to spend the time, but I'm not sure which training is the best for me, or which books I should read, or how should I go about trying to find people that I can practice my coaching skills on. What's the best way for those so they have the drive, just they're not sure in how they can actually get into their destination.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions to be answered. So the first thing is, for example, if you want to buy something, you have to check the specifications, right? For your metaphor, I want to go to Bandung, right? I want to go Bandung. So what vehicle that you'll be using it, right? So there's plane, there will be a train, there will be a car, right? Different transportation vehicle that you want to use. So we base on your budget first, right? Oh, airplane will be faster, only 1 hour to achieve Bandung, right? But it cost me $1 million, a million rupiah, right? If you want to take a train will take you 3 hours to get there, right? The amount is cheaper, but you will be meeting other people. You want another a bus, the same time like train, but it's cheaper and it's more 5 or 6 people, right? But sometimes the tricky is they have a traffic. The other one is you drive by yourself. You drive by yourself, you get tired, right? But it's cheaper. You only pay the toll, you only pay the fuel and everything, right? But what happens is traffic and it's tired, and you have to drive yourself, right? So the same concept with which training that you will be taking. So the first will be checking which will be training you, who is going to give the training, who is going to facilitate the trainings, right? For example, my certifications, I already give you a summaries. For example, I'm a coaching trainer. I'm a certified NLP coach trainer. If you compare in Indonesia, for example, I don't mention names, but none of them have a coaching trainer certifications. If you want to learn from someone, you can ask for their certification for their credential.
Mm,
And of course, they will give it to you and it will be
right.
available.
I mean, so it's I like to talk about this on my channel. It's kind of about doing your research and making sure that you're looking for real teachers as opposed to fake teachers, people who actually do the things that they are teaching and not just providing theory, but they themselves don't give that advice. Would that be what you're saying here? Is when we're doing this research, we need to look at, is this person real or is this person just marketing themselves?
Well, first of all, I will not going to learn from the fake ones. I
Right,
will pick from the real ones.
right,
I will pick the best from the real ones.
right.
For example, I spend more than 2 billion rupiah in my
Mm,
knowledge, right? Most of them I took it overseas. I don't take it in
mm,
Indonesia because if I take Indonesia, I will not able to open myself for NLP training for my trainers training and
mhm.
directly to the US.
Right.
My coaching certification mostly for foreigners that host a program in Bali, for example.
Mhm.
I went to London, I went to US, I went to KL, and to Singapore. So I will not compare for the ones that fake teachers. That will be not in my radar. In my radar will be checking the real ones and picking the best ones out of
Absolutely.
the real ones. So
Absolutely.
get the best out of the best. So if you compare to the fake ones to the so-called fake teachers, it's wasting your time.
Right.
It's wasting your energy to
However,
check.
a lot of people maybe they think, oh, this is a cheaper option.
Ah,
Um, and some people have that mentality of, oh, maybe I can save a bit of money here if I choose this trainer, and then they don't actually do the research, and they think that they're being smart when actually
right.
they're getting nothing out of it. What would you say
I'm
to those people?
I'm not going to say uh, comparison to the money wise. For
Mhm.
example, like this, there's some certification that I took quite uh, affordable, not cheap, affordable, but
Mhm.
it's good knowledge, right? There are some certification that took me 7,000 for 3 days, 2 nights. Very expensive, but I cannot use it until now. 3 days, 2 nights in Bali, a master class, 7,000 US dollar. I will not mention the names, but I cannot use it. So the comparison is not the value, right?
Mm,
If you said, hey, 7,000 man, gila, gitu kan?
right,
7,000 you can buy or something, right?
right,
7,000 at that time, 2013 is quite a lot of money, right?
right,
In rupiah will be 100 million rupiah, right? You can actually buy a house, right?
right.
At that time, I just thought he's a famous guy, it's very top notch. The knowledge will be freaking awesome, but I cannot use it until present day.
Mm,
So it doesn't matter about the value, right? For example, okay, oh, there's people that doing chip coaching, chip certification. Okay, but do you see people riding sport cars compared to the ones with the cheaper cars? You
right.
don't you you don't have to say it. There's several layers of marketing and segmentation of the marketing. So if
Mm,
we don't play in that part, for example, we don't see Lamborghini doing commercial in newspaper. You don't see Ferrari
never.
doing commercial in television. So it's the different marketing strategies and different marketing segmentation. I will
Right,
not say for the ones who looking for the chip, it's not the market. For
right,
me, I don't play at that market. During the pandemic, I provide that kind of market. So I make different stages of price and knowledge, right?
right,
I cannot sell my I'm gonna host in September a certification in Bali. I'll charge them 20 million rupiah. I cannot charge them for the one who's taking 500,000 rupiah,
Right.
right?
I was going to ask, so I guess for the listeners here, it's important that we know what we're investing. We're investing in ourselves, and we should be knowing that this knowledge is something that will add value to us, not just now, but even in the future. It's something that will add value to us, and that's what we need to consider. Is that what you would say?
No, 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 no. I will ask them first will be the outcome.
Mm.
For example, okay, I know Jimmy's training is fucking awesome.
Yep.
Say that. Freaking awesome, right? I have to invest 20 million, but I don't have the money. So I'm gonna borrow from David but I don't have the money and I don't know how to repay it.
Mm.
So that will be troublesome for someone to join the class. Right. So I will check the outcome. Some person that I ask the outcome, if you cannot afford it and it's not the time right now, don't join now.
Mm.
Right? Don't force yourself to forced to come into trainings, but you don't know how to pay the bills. You don't know how to pay the monthly expenses of your life. If you have kids, if you have wife, you spend the money, and then they're gonna die because you cannot feed them.
I think
So
that's
I
a
will
very
check
important,
the outcome,
important
their capability. So
Right.
if they have money and they have the expense and the ability to expand it, expand themselves, for example, right? So go ahead, aim for the bigger car, bigger vehicle, faster vehicle. Don't aim for the cheap ones, the KW ones, the fake ones.
Right.
And if you have the amount, you have the money, go ahead. If you don't, you cannot survive your own basic stuff. You try to borrow money to join the class, but you don't know how to pay. Oh, I'm so freaking confident after this training. I'm so freaking motivated. Then what?
Right.
How
That's
you
a
gonna?
very important message, and I think it's not just for if you want to join a training. It's a very important life message. If you can't
Right.
afford something, don't buy it. Don't do it. Right. A lot of people think like, oh, I'm going to start a business, but maybe they can't even afford, and they don't have the capital to start it.
Yes.
Or they
Exactly.
think, I want to upgrade my car, I want to upgrade my house, but they don't actually have the money to afford it. So that's very important. And would you say though that it also comes down to timing? That's something we need to consider.
It's not about timing. I will be more checked on their outcomes. After the outcomes, you can break it down into timelines. You can break down in the plans. If without that, you only just in the hype, in the trend. You're not going anywhere with the trend. Oh, new haircut is trend. Oh, new car is trend. So you're following the trend. You're not following your outcome. You're not following your goals. If the outcome,
it's a little bit like, how Bitcoin was a huge hype recently, and everyone was trying to jump on, and then suddenly Bitcoin dropped.
this is my coin, my collection coin. This is 1937. This is
Oh,
my
wow.
coin. I'm just cleaning it up. So I don't play Bitcoin. I play
But
with
that's
the
kind of,
MG.
would you say that's kind of the hype? Like sometimes people see that hype and they get what we call FOMO, right? Fear of missing out.
Well, I'm not going to say it's FOMO or something, but I will not jump into something that I didn't know and expect there will be a pure gambling.
Right,
And
right.
not that I don't like gambling or I espouse gambling, but I'm in life we always gambling, not in gambling putting money, but gambling in your how to improve yourself, right.
Right.
But also when you do research first and then the outcome, I will always play that outcome and research
Mm.
to get to what we want.
So it's so important to have a plan,
Yeah,
to have
the
a step
outcome,
by
the
step.
outcome, then the
Right,
plan to achieve the
right. What
outcome.
is the outcome you want, and then create a plan
Yeah.
that can help you reach that outcome.
Then
That's
if you think the Bitcoin is works, so get the Bitcoin. Prefer coins that I can hold and I can see and then I clean it up that get me satisfactions.
right, right. Or if it's a training that is amazing, as you say, freaking awesome training, uh, and that's part of the outcome you want, then that's when you should go for it. As
Yes,
long as it goes in line with your plan and it's not
the outcome.
hurting you. You're not forcing yourself to do it.
Yeah. Just in the metaphor is don't get it bite back in your back.
Right.
Bite
That,
you
that,
back in the ass.
that's a very good tip. Um, so, Coach Jimmy, I could ask you a lot more questions. This is a very
Right on.
interesting conversation. Um, but we're running out of time here. So I'm going to ask one last question that I like to ask all my guests.
Okay.
Um, let's say that your time on earth is coming to an end. You're going to
Mm.
move on to a better place,
Uh,
and you can only leave behind two pearls of wisdom for the world to remember you by. So these two pearls of wisdom are the only things that people will remember of you. What would be your two pearls of wisdom?
Three pearls of wisdom, if I may. Uh,
Absolutely.
do good, be good, and feel good.
Hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit on what do good, be good, and feel good?
I'm going to die. I'm not going to explain. You just find it out.
Right.
Right. I'm going to die. I'm going to give you three parts. It will be uh, do good, be good, and feel good. So people have no need to elaborate because I'm going to die, right? So that's the thing. So I got it from a quite rich person. I was in a Rotary Club. He's a PDG, and his tagline is that he's make a campaign out of it, right?
Mm.
Be good means your being is person, right? Being is the person. Be good
Right.
mean being a good or be a good person, right?
Right.
Doing the good karma, helping people, right?
Yep.
And just help, being honest, help others, help all the family, right? And
Mm.
then just being into charity and stuff, right? Be good, right? And do good. Do good will be doing the charity, doing helping people, and the end is will be feel good. Some
Mm.
people being good, doing good, but feel terrible,
Right.
right?
So it kind of starts with yourself.
Yeah,
You need to be self-aware, that you're a good person. You turn
right.
that into action, and that action turns into something that rewards you.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
very powerful message. So thank you so much for your time, Coach Jimmy. I really appreciate it. And I hope we can talk again some more sometime.
right
In
on.
the meantime, though, for some of the listeners, some of the audience who would like to know more, maybe join some of your trainings.
Sure.
What's the best way to contact you or maybe register for a training? or maybe they want to read some of your books, what's the best way to do that?
Go to my Instagram. Find me in Instagram.
Okay.
It will be easy. I'm maintaining myself, my Instagram, and in my Instagram, the profile, they have all the information in the profile where you can buy my books. I published more than 40 books. I wrote 7 of them, and they're available physically. And I also have ebooks that I sold in Gramedia online. So I have the link, everything in Instagram. My profile will be in Instabio, so the information will be a lot of Instagram. So I'm quite active in Instagram and post almost every day. So all the DM or direct message will be answering it. So Instagram will be good.
So
Find
sorry,
Jimmy.
what's your Instagram handle? At
Find Jimmy Susanto. I think
Jimmy Susanto.
at Jimbong, Gimbonx.
At Gimbos.
X.
X. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So everyone, if you're interested, we'll leave the link for the Instagram, and you can always contact and follow Coach Jimmy there.
Yes.
All right. So thank you again for your time, Coach Jimmy.
Thank you for having
Hope
me.
to be able to talk to you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we hope to see you again next time.
Well, thank you. Adios.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.